Hello everyone. So today's topic is moment of inertia. So let us talk about this. I told you that when we talk about linear motion, we talk about inertia. Now what inertia does? Inertia plays a vital role in changing of state of motion. So inertia is kinda laziness. So because of that, a object wants to stay in its previous state. Now in case of rotation, what we are going to say, the same role is played by moment of inertia. Moment of inertia. Okay, so now when we talk about these two things separately, so though their role is same, but something is different, and that is the values and the what you say, the properties. So we know that inertia is directly proportional with mass. So this inertia we can directly measure with mass of that object, and that is closely regarded to linear motion only. But in this situation, rotation, moment of inertia plays a vital role in order to preserve its previous rotational state. So either the object is fixed or the object is rotating, and that is dependent not only on mass but also on the distribution. Now how is this how is the dependence? So moment of inertia is basically written in terms of capital I, and we can see that if you have in any arbitrary object and you want to rotate this object around any arbitrary axis, so now we know that this 3D object is made up of lots of particles. So let's say there is particle 1, so with m1 mass and the distance r1 from the axis. Here we have m2 mass with r2 distance from the axis, and so on. So we have lots of masses because of the particles, and that's why we can write like this. Moment of inertia means first you have to write all the mass and this r square distributions. So m1 r1 square plus m2 r2 square plus dot 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 dot, and it will go on. Let's say there are n particle, so that will be mn rn square, and then divided by m1 plus m2 plus m3 plus dot 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 till mn. So in short form, what we can write, we can use this symbol which is called a sigma. So this is actually nothing but kinda addition, and we can say this is mi ri square, where i's value is running from 1 to n, and downside sigma means all the additions of mi when I runs from 1 to n. So this is our fundamental expression regarding our moment of inertia. So we can see that I is proportional to r square generally. So generally I is proportional to r square. Now how to find this one, like how to find these values? So let us say that we have a single object like this, and this object is having mass m, and this object is rotating around this center of what you say axis. So you can see here this, if the distance is r, so we can definitely say that the moment of inertia is, because there is only one, so m r square. Okay, this is generally you can we can see that if we have lots of like masses like this m1, then we have, let's say it's a loop. Okay, so in the second case what we can do, we can draw a circle like this. Just a minute. Okay, we can draw a circle like this. So it's a, and the axis is this one. So the loop is rotating around this axis. Okay, and the distance is r. So there are so many points you can see, right? Acha. So you can write always that we know that this formula, this is summation of mi ri square by summation of mi. So if the total mass of this loop is m, and we know that this loop is made up of lots of particles, so we can consider a small portion of particle, and we can say the mass of this small section is dm. So dm is a small mass of that strip, right, and which is at r distance. So how we can calculate these things? We can do like this, ki when it's a continuous object, in that case instead of this summation we can write integration. Then we can write, because it's a very small it's a very small point and it's a very small section, so the mass can be replaced as dm, and which is at r square distance divided by summation of mi, that is again integration of dm. Okay, so there are lots of there are lots of points, and all of the points will have this dm like this, all will have some sort of values. Now the question is that how we are getting in this case mr square, that formula. We know that if we have a loop and if we have an axis, then this formula should come. Fine. Okay, now we know that if let's say dm, so we have to treat dm in terms of r. We know that the the circumference of the loop is 2 pi r, and if we take the density to be rho or d, so the density is d. So we know that in that case we can write that the density d is equal to total mass by 2 pi r, right? Now, so this is also known to us, but I don't want you to misinterpret with density, so I write rho. So as you guys don't know integration, so I will just give a rough idea. Okay, so this integration of dm is very easy, because you know that integration of all the small points will give you ultimately a big point, so you can finally get easily that integration of dm is m. But in this case dm is also there, r is also there, but obviously this dm, that is the small mass portion, can be related to r, and then we can find out the I. Now I'm not going into integration part, because you guys not have done integration, but ultimately when you will be learning integration using this method, using this integration, we can directly find out that I should come total mass into r square. Okay, so I'm not going into that because that will be complicated. Now the most important part is that why I was telling this one, because this moment of inertia depend on the axis, so this distance. So if I rotate this loop which is at r distance from the axis, so I am rotating this loop around its center. Okay, so in that case I will have this value mr square. But let's say I am rotating this disk around one of the diameter, like this. So this loop is rotating like this, just like a flipping of coin. So in that case I will be half mr square. Now the question is, wow, that means it changes. Yes, it changes, it depends on the axis. So for the same object you will be having a different formulas. But there are two very interesting theorem which can easily find out either of this. Okay, so if you remember this, you can easily find this one. So there are some formulas and we will be discussing mainly about those. One more thing is that some of this kind of moment of inertia of different objects you have to remember, like let's say disk. So this was for the loop, this was for the disk. So for the disk, if we rotate like this, the moment of inertia should come half mr square. And if you make the disk rotate around its diameter, then that means the axis will be the diameter itself, then I will be having 1/4 mr square value. Okay, in the same way what will happen, you know that if I draw a cylinder like this, so let's say I have a cylinder. Okay, just a minute, let me, yeah, okay, let's say I have a cylinder like this, and in case of cylinder, we know that a cylinder is made up of actually lots of disc, right? So if I draw the outmost part of this one, so I can see that this surface is kind of disc. So we can say that when a lots of discs are together piled up, they creates the cylinder. So that's why when we rotate a cylinder around its axis, so again the formula is same of the disk, because all the outermost points are at the same distance r. So if we take a disk and if you take a cylinder with same radius, the value will come same. So this will be again mr square. So you have to remember some of these formulas. Okay, the sheet I will be giving you, or you can find it in your NCERT books as well. But now we will read something which is very interesting, that is your two theorems. Okay, so one is called parallel axis theorem. Parallel axis theorem. So parallel axis theorem is what? Let's say we have a disk, and we know that if we rotate this disk around this axis, that is your z axis, say, then my I will come, Iz will come half mr square. But what will happen if I shift this axis and if I rotate this disk around this one? So that means what will happen, this disk will rotate like this. So the disk will rotate itself in such a way that the center of the disk will rotate in a circle. Okay, so basically it's a little bit tricky to understand, but if instead of rotating from the center, if I rotate the disk from one of its tangent portion, then what will happen? So you can see here there is a direct shift, right? So there is a direct shift. So how much is the shift of the axis? So I have shifted the axis at r distance. Okay, so I can write that my new axis, let's say this is I prime z, so this is also z prime axis, say, and so I prime z will be my Iz plus m, that is the mass of the disk, into the distance which you have shifted, that is r square. Okay, so this is called a parallel axis theorem. Let's say I have shifted the distance, let's say here it was this, I know this, I know Iz, I know, and I want to rotate the disk around this axis z, which is at a distance. So how the disk will rotate? The center of the disk will rotate in this circle, okay, around this circle. So that means what will be the new Iz prime? So Iz prime will be now, so this is Iz and this is Iz prime, will be Iz plus mass of the disk into a square. So the shift, if you know how much is the shift, you can find easily the previous one. You don't have to do integration again. Okay, so I can say that this is half mr square plus ma square. So you can directly tell this. And this theorem is called parallel axis theorem. So this is basically very easy theorem. Okay, so this one also you can find out easily, so you don't have to remember all the time. So this will be 3 by 2 mr square. So this is a new formula, you don't have to remember. You can remember this one and you can easily find out that one. Achha. So this is parallel axis theorem. The parallel axis theorem is regarding the shift of the axis around which you are rotating the object. Achha. The new thing is that another theorem is that is called perpendicular axis theorem. Perpendicular axis theorem. Okay. So what is this perpendicular axis theorem? It says that, let's take again the example of disk. So this is I-axis, x-axis, z-axis and your y-axis. So it says that your Ix, that means if you rotate the object around x-axis, plus your Iy, that is if you rotate the axis around y-axis, in the same sense or different sense, so sense does not matter, okay, that will be equal to your Iz, that is the, if you rotate the object around z-axis. Okay, so this will be the theorem. Now how this is possible? You can see here that in case of disk we know that Iz, so in case of disk we know that Iz is half mr square. Now we can also see from this picture that for a coin, so coin is a disk. For a coin, if you rotate around x-axis or you rotate around y-axis, it's the same thing, right? That means you are flipping the object, you are flipping the coin. So you can write Ix equal to Iy. So this equation I can write as, so this equation was Ix plus Iy is equal to Iz. So I can write this as 2Ix is equal to Iz. So Ix is equal to Iz by 2. So this was 1 by 4 mr square. So what is your Ix? Ix is your this one. If you rotate around the one of the diameter. So you can see here this formula we have written long back, this, right? And again here we can see that, yeah, if we remember only one, and if we remember the theorem itself that says that your Ix plus Iy is your Iz. So if we know one of this and if you know the condition of other two, you can easily find out the another one. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so in this way you can remember, you can find out many of those. You don't have to remember lots. Acha. The integration part, how these things are coming, I will not show you now because that will be confusing for you because you don't know how to do integration right now. Acha. And one more thing today you will be learning. That one is called your radius of gyration. This is not that tough one. Okay, so I think you remember that one key. I talked about center of mass. So center of mass is the point which represents all of these points, all of the points of that particle, and the distribution also. It contains some information about the distribution of those particles also. Achha. Now we know that there are many objects which are not in very good shapes, like which are not disk, which are not like that. So radius of gyration means a point, okay, which like the radius which you can see. Let me give you an example that will be easier. Let's say we have a disk, right? We have like say we have a circle, sphere, we have a sphere, we have a disk, we have a sphere. So sphere is a 3D object and this is a 2D object. We know that when it rotates, the I becomes half mr square. I for sphere is 2 by 3 mr square. Sorry, I think 2 by 5. Yeah, 2 by 5 mr square. I also have to remember it. Okay, so that means you can see that mr square is there, but this thing is changing, right? So there is a system where we can take this all things in such a way so that there is a general formula. I can say that if the disk is of mass m, and if I take a point mass which is having that same amount of mass which is m, and if I rotate it with some axis k, with some axis having distance k from that point, so if it produces the same moment of inertia as of that object, then we can say that k is the radius of gyration. So that means, let's say if it is rotating around k, so I will be mk square. Now if this two cases produces the same I, then I can write that half mr square is, let me write upside. Okay, so I can write half mr square is equal to mk square, and I can cancel out m. I can write that r by 2 r by root 2 is your k. So I can say that that the radius of gyration for this disk is r by 2. So radius of gyration means the distance from the axis. If let me articulate it nicely. That okay, so if any object is there, so if the object mass is being replaced by a point mass, and then if it is rotated with some certain distance such that the inertia of that object around that axis and the inertia of this system of one particle around that axis is same, then that distance k is called the radius of gyration. Finding radius of gyration is very easy. Let's say you can see here only, directly you just have to make any inertia equal to mk square and find out the value of k simply. Okay, so this is the radius of gyration for the disk. We can easily find out the radius of gyration for a loop even. So let us say we have a loop like this. I thought it's not a loop. Okay, so let us say we have a loop like this, and I know that the radius of gyration of the loop I don't know, and I know that inertia around the axis through the center is mr square. So if the total mass is m, so if I replace the mass m with a point, and if I rotate this around k distance with some axis, so I will here be also mk square. So I can see here this, if this two system produces the same inertia, then mr square is mk square, so k is equal to r. So for a loop, radius of gyration is nothing but the r itself, but for a disk the radius of gyration is r by root 2. So that means what? Finding radius of gyration, that means radius of gyration is creating a generalized process where any object can be of any shape. You can compare them all with this point. So let me say here, I can tell you that the radius of gyration for disk is this much, and the radius of gyration for loop is this much. So you can say that this is nothing but regarding this constant. Okay, so this is actually regarding the constant. So this was radius of gyration. So you will understand this like with your own perspective. Like center of mass represents all of the particle. In the same situation, radius of gyration is an approach that that can compare various of the moment of inertias all together. Okay, and we can compare that to which is having more radius of gyration. That means it talks about the constant part. Okay, you know that the more is the constant part, the more is the moment of inertia. So radius of gyration decides that. Okay, so if I have more radius of gyration, that means I have more moment of inertia. If I have less radius of gyration, that means I have less moment of inertia. So it's kind of that. Okay, so I hope you understood this one little bit. And this was the class. It was all about this two theorem, perpendicular axis theorem and your parallel axis theorem. These two are quite easy. I think that will be helpful for the numericals as well. And the integration part right now you can neglect, but I just told you how these formulas are coming. So these are coming from this single formula itself. Okay, so whatever. So thank you for the class, and we will be doing the next class online. So meet you there only. Thank you everybody.